Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We will begin exactly in 1 minute. Next slide, please. Again, everyone, welcome to today's webinar, New Jersey's Comprehensive School-Based Mental Health Webinar Series. This is session 1, Developing an MTSS Framework. This webinar is sponsored by the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, and we're housed at Rutgers in the School of Health Professions in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. My name is Kathy Rivera, and I'm the project coordinator of this center and will be hosting this webinar today. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So on your screen, you'll also see the schedule of our future sessions that we will be hosting. These are monthly webinars, and we will link the schedule and the website to all of the registration pages in the chat box. Next slide, please. In addition to our monthly webinars, we're also hosting technical assistance calls twice a month, and our next one will be on November 4th from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3 p.m. all Eastern Standard Time, as well as Tuesday, November 9th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Next slide, please. The MHTTC is funded by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, to enhance the capacity of the behavioral health and other related workforces to deliver evidence-based and empirically supported practices to individuals with mental illnesses. Please visit the MHTTC Network website for additional information at mhttcnetwork.org. Next slide, please. And if you're interested in staying up to date with the events and products the Northeast and Caribbean MHTTC is providing, please sign up to receive our email communication. You can sign up on the bit.ly link provided on the screen, and we'll also share that in the chat box. Next slide, please. Following the webinar, you'll be asked to complete a brief survey. We value this feedback and use it to improve our activities and inform future activities. The surveys are also important because our continued funding is linked to the completion of these surveys, so we thank you in advance. Thank you. Next slide. We also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website along with the PowerPoint slides in the next couple of days. This presentation was prepared for the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center under a cooperative agreement from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, known as SAMHSA. All material appearing in this presentation, except that taken directly from copyrighted sources, is in the public domain and may be reproduced or copied without permission from SAMHSA or the authors. Citation of the source is appreciated. We ask that you not reproduce or distribute this presentation for a fee without specific written authorization from the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. At the time of this presentation, Marian Delphin Rittman served as Assistant Secretary for the Mental Health and Substance Use at SAMHSA. The opinions expressed herein are the views of the speakers and do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services, or SAMHSA. No official support or endorsement of the HHS, SAMHSA, for the opinions described in this presentation is intended or should be inferred. Next slide, please. We encourage you to interact with our presenter during this webinar by using the chat feature. Please post any comments or questions you have in the chat, and I will collect your questions as we go and ask them of the presenter during the Q&A time towards the end of the presentation. During the webinar, our presenter may pose questions to you as well as polls, so please use the chat feature or the polls, the pop-up windows for the polls to answer these questions. Next slide, please. The MHTTC network uses affirming, respectful, and recovery-oriented language in all activities. This includes language that is strength-based and hopeful, language that is inclusive and accepting of diverse cultures, genders, perspectives, and experiences, language that is healing-centered and trauma-responsive, language that invites individuals to participate in their own recovery journey, that is person-first and free of labels, non-judgmental and avoids assumptions, and language that is respectful, clear, and understandable and consistent with their actions, policies, and products. Next slide. Let's begin our webinar. We have Ms. Christy Rydvalski and Dr. Paul Barbato with us today. Ms. Rydvalski joined the MHTTC team in 2020 as a school-based training and consultation specialist. Prior to joining our team, she supported school teams with coaching, training, and technical assistance in the areas of social emotional learning, school mental health, and positive behavioral interventions and supports. She brings more than 15 years of experience in implementing and maintaining evidence-based practices in a variety of settings. Ms. Rydvalski is passionate about improving the educational and social outcomes for urban communities. She has worked extensively in urban districts of Philadelphia and Newark, working within schools and partnering with many inner city grassroots, faith-based organizations, and local universities to align school-wide behavioral and mental health efforts with the local community. We also have Dr. Paul Barbato with us. He is the Director of Special Services in the Dumont Public Schools in New Jersey. Dr. Barbato serves on the following: New Jersey State Special Education Advisory Council, the chair, New Jersey Association of Pupil Services Administrators, New Jersey Special Education Administrators Association, New Jersey Principal and Supervisors Association, and the Bergen County Special Services School District Advisory Committee. Dr. Barbato was awarded the 2014 Special Education Administrator of the Year from NJASA, NJAPSA, and the Centris Group. Dr. Barbato serves as an adjunct professor at Fairleigh Dickinson University, New Jersey City University, and Hudson Community College in New Jersey. Dr. Barbato is an NJL2L and NJXL mentor and teaches within the NJXL and NJTLC programs of the NJPSA. Again, I want to welcome everyone, and I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Well, thank you so much, Kati. And good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see so many people joining today's call. Just thank you for taking the time to join us for the first session in our webinar series, Developing a MTSS Framework. We're so happy to have Dr. Paul Barbato joining us today. And so we'll start today's session just kind of reviewing the multi-tier systems of support framework. So our objectives are to just understand the core features of a comprehensive school mental health framework, identify the phases of a comprehensive school mental health framework, recognize the importance that teams play in the implementation process, and really understand New Jersey best practices by hearing from our district exemplar today. So to get today's session started, I'd like to know what brings you here. So Kati, if we could launch our first poll, that would be great. All right, so if folks could just take a moment, you should see a poll question that's popped up on your screen and just ask you what brings you here today. Is it to pick up all the important information? Is it to understand the implementation efforts of other schools and districts? Is it to ask some important questions and as it relates to implementing the multi-tier systems of support framework? Or is it just to check your own understanding? So we'll wait for folks to respond. So if folks could take a moment to just respond to the poll question, that would be great. All right, maybe we're having some issues on our end, picking up some of the responses, but that's okay. If folks wouldn't mind to just please maybe drop your role within schools and your name, the name of the district that you are currently working in the chat, that would be awesome. So the overall purpose of this webinar series is to help schools across the state develop a comprehensive school mental health framework. The New Jersey Department of Education, in collaboration with the Northeast and Caribbean MTSS, is working to release a school mental health resource guide in the next few weeks, fingers crossed. The guide is meant to be light on research and theory and provide practical guidance for a comprehensive school mental health implementation. Research consistently points to the growing need for mental health supports in schools, not just for our students, but for our staff as well. Mental health disorders remain a prominent health issue that children and adults face on a daily basis, with about approximately 20% of adults living with some form of mental illness, and about 10 to 25% of children affected by mental illness. And I'm sure we all know with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen these numbers continue to rise. Comprehensive school mental health systems provide a full array of supports and services that promote positive school climates, social and emotional learning, mental health and well-being, while working to reduce the prevalence and severity of mental illness. Developing a comprehensive school mental health system requires really a thorough understanding of how to organize supports and services for students and staff. And in order to address the needs of all students and staff, schools should utilize the multi-tier systems of support framework. So some of the core features of a comprehensive school mental health framework include a prevention-based framework, which is multi-tier systems of support, data-based decision-making, team problem solving, collaboration with families, students, and community partners, evidence-based practices, and cultural responsiveness and equity. So for today, we will spend the majority of our time talking about multi-tier systems of support, but I will highlight some of the other core features as well. So multi-tier systems of support, also known as MTSS, or here in New Jersey, NJTSS, emerged as a framework from the work conducted in public health, emphasizing 3 tiers of prevention. Problem prevention and wellness promotion are really the underlying principles for each of the tiers within the MTSS framework. One important point that I should highlight is that these tiers refer to levels of support that students receive, not to students themselves. So students receive tier 2 supports. They are not tier 2 students. Schools should really apply this model as a way to align to academic, behavioral, social, emotional, and mental health supports to improve the education for all students. All students and staff should be exposed formally and in an ongoing manner to universal interventions. So universal interventions, also known as Tier 1, is provided to all students and focuses on giving students the necessary pro-social skills and strengthening behavioral skills as well. If done systematically and comprehensively, the majority of students are likely to be affected. Some students, however, will be unresponsive or unsupported by universal prevention or Tier 1. And in this case, a more specialized intervention will be required. One form of assistance is generally called secondary interventions or tier 2, and is characterized by instruction that is targeted. These interventions can be standardized to be applied across a small number of students. So for example, anxiety or problem-solving small groups. The goal of secondary prevention is really to reduce and prevent the likelihood of problem behavior occurrences, mental health risk, and poor social and emotional skills. If universal intervention is in place and implemented with strong fidelity, a small proportion of students will require highly individualized and intensive interventions. So meaning, if your tier 1 foundation is strong, you should really see about 80 to 90% of your students responding well to your universal interventions, and about 5 to 10% of students needing tier 2 supports, and 1 to 5% needing tier 3 supports. But more often, schools find that the distribution is skewed in a sense. So for example, you may see 60% in tier 1 or 20% in tier 2 and 20% in tier 3. This is normally what we call a taxed system, where staff are often putting out fires, and staff don't feel like they have the necessary resources to address high-risk behavior and mental health concerns. When we focus on a systems approach, such as the multi-tiered systems of support, and tackle prevention first, we really find that the distribution of student need starts looking more like the triangle you see on your screen. Therefore, we have more students engaged in pro-social behavior and more resources, such as staff time. So some important points to note about the multi-tier systems of support framework. MTSS relies on a continuum of evidence-based practices to meet students' needs. Movement is fluid, and that just means that students' needs need different levels of support at different times throughout their development. The tiers are continuous, so each tier really builds off of the other. Students who receive high levels of support continue to benefit from the supports offered at tier 1. And the one size does not fit all. It just means that your MTSS framework should match your school, your surrounding community, and the need of staff and students. Data, I can't stress this enough, that data is consistently used at each tier to really make decisions about what evidence-based interventions are available at each tier. Data could be things such as attendance, office discipline referrals, or even universal screeners. So now we'll just take a closer look at each of the individual tiers. All right, so tier 1. Tier 1 supports serve as the foundation of your framework. I always like to think about tier 1 as the foundation of a home, let's say. If the foundation of the home or your home isn't strong, what happens, right? The home can easily collapse. And the same concept applies when implementing your MTSS framework. As previously mentioned, tier 1 supports are provided to all students and staff. And for most students, tier 1 supports gives them exactly what they need to be successful at school and really helps to prevent any future academic, behavior, or mental health problems. Some mental health related activities include promotion of positive social, emotional, and behavioral skills, which really are designed to meet the needs of all students, regardless if they are at risk for mental health problems or not. This also includes things like supporting the development of positive school climate for staff. So some examples that are kind of outlined on the slide are staff well-being, social emotional learning, SEL, suicide prevention, universal screeners, and consistent discipline policies and procedures. So tier 2, which is secondary prevention, this level of support focuses on improving specific skill deficits. So tier 2 supports are often provided to groups of students where these small groups increase the opportunity for practice and feedback. Tier 2 supports really help give students the skills that they need in order to succeed in school and honestly later in life. Tier 2 is designed for about 5 to 10% of students who may not respond to the universal supports and are at risk for developing mental health issues unless smaller group targeted interventions are provided. So for example, anxiety small groups or problem solving groups. Tier 2 supports may be provided by staff, even teachers, or qualified community partners, and should really align with Tier 1 supports. It's also important to note that Tier 2 supports are critical to really decreasing the risk of more serious mental health problems throughout a child's school career and later adulthood. And lastly, Tier 3 supports are the most intensive supports that schools can offer. Tier 3, or also known as tertiary prevention, responds to the individualized needs of about 1 to 5% of students who do not respond to the primary and secondary supports and will need more intensive individualized interventions. These may include things such as individual, group, or even family therapy. So we'll just pause here for a second. And Kati, if we could launch our second poll, and let's see if it's working now. And the second poll question is more so around which tier within the MTSS framework do you feel your school or district needs the most coaching support? So which tier within the MTS framework do you feel your school or district could benefit from additional coaching support? Is it Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3? So what tier within the MTSS framework do you feel your school or district needs the most coaching support? And we may still be experiencing some issues with the poll. So you know what, we will.
I end the poll and share.
Say it again, Kati, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Should I end the poll and share the results?
Yes, go ahead. Oh, perfect. There it is. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so it looks like, oh, wow. So we have Tier 1 is coming in at 44%. Tier 2, not lagging far behind, is at 35%, and Tier 3 at 20%. Okay, very good for us to know. Thank you so much for participating. All right, so a comprehensive school mental health framework employs this tiered approach while including a heavy focus on school community collaborations to provide mental health services across the tiers. So in addition to mental health providers, though, we've seen some schools may involve faith-based communities, physical healthcare providers, substance treatment providers, and so on. So one thing we know is that there are many benefits to aligning and connecting multiple initiatives. So integrating multiple initiatives using the same framework really helps align different efforts. It helps us to strategize our resources and identify staff who can be trained to collaborate and really utilize evidence-based interventions across the tiers. So this slide here is just an example of how we can align and connect our work at Tier 1, the universal level. Services are really enhanced by combining the advantages and focuses of each initiative. So some common initiatives that I'm sure all of you have heard about on the call could include school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports, response to intervention, RTI, New Jersey tier systems of support, so NJTSS, school-wide social emotional learning, SEL, and restorative practices. If your school uses any of these approaches to address a student's academic, behavioral, or social emotional needs, I can't stress this enough either. You do not need to stop using them when developing a framework for comprehensive school mental health. These initiatives have similar components that really do fit nicely within the overall umbrella of a MTSS framework. You can learn more about aligning and connecting your work by visiting the website that I believe somebody from our team is going to drop in the chat that talks in more detail about the Interconnected Systems Framework. So the Interconnected Systems Framework, also known as ISF, is really a structure and process to establish a single system of delivery across education and mental health with active family and youth engagement. So I know what you're probably thinking is that developing a MTSS framework requires a great deal of time and effort and energy, and you would be absolutely right. And that's why it's so important to develop a strong team that is representative of your school staff, community, and students. So when we think about school teams, we think about them at multiple levels. So at the district level, a school team will be responsible for securing funding for their school mental health efforts or setting district priorities. School teams at the school level or at the building level would be more so responsible for aligning student services using a data-driven process, even collaboration to plan and implement. So sometimes it can be incredibly helpful to reevaluate the teams that exist at this district and building level. You may have multiple teams and they serve the same purpose and have similar goals. So for example, schools that have a school climate team or a safety student support team and a mental health team or an MTSS team may consider combining these efforts into one team and calling it the Tier 1 team to address universal programming, and maybe consider developing a Tier 2 and 3 team to address more targeted programming. A main feature of school mental health teams, as I mentioned before, is data-based problem solving. Schools may choose to examine a number of indicators of social, emotional, and behavioral health, including behavioral referrals, attendance, and grades. One model for effective teaming using database decisions is called TIPS. TIPS stands for Team Initiated Problem Solving. TIPS really helps school-based teams shift from problem admiring to problem solving. The TIPS model starts with helping teams establish foundational elements of effective and efficient meetings, such as using meeting minutes to guide notes and developing consistent procedures, clearly defining roles and responsibilities. And it really helps to guide the team through the problem solving and decision-making process using a structured agenda. To learn more about TIPS, you can visit the link that I'm sure somebody from our team will drop into the chat. And developing and implementing a comprehensive school mental health system is typically a 5-year process, really occurring across multiple phases of implementation. It starts really with the exploration and development phase in which teams are created and provided training. Schools go through the needs assessment and resource mapping process and really begin to plan out the components of the universal system. So I know the next session in November will be all about resource mapping and needs assessment. In the second year, schools begin to implement their universal program and may pilot with a small group to prepare for more of a larger rollout. The following years move towards more of a full implementation with the addition of advanced tiers and continuous improvement activities, with the goal of really fully embedding the program into the school culture. And I know this can be a very, like I mentioned before, a pretty overwhelming process and task, especially if you are dealing with pretty significant behavior or mental health challenges. But there are some low resource evidence-based interventions that I like to refer to as the low-hanging fruit that can really offer support while you are developing your framework. So for example, the good behavior game, is a wonderful classroom intervention. It's also been used in cafeterias as well to help manage behavior, or SEL kernels, which are school-wide, class-wide strategies and activities that can help really support social and emotional competence. All right, so our last poll question, if we can launch this one, Kati, is just what phase of implementation is your school or district in currently? So what phase of implementation? Is it year one, kind of reassessing things given the pandemic? Is it year two where you're kind of kicking off some universal interventions? Is it year three where you're really looking at developing out your tier two and tier two systems? Is it year four where you're kind of scaling up to tier three? Or are we in year five, which is kind of just everything is moving along and we're just collecting data and monitoring fidelity of implementation? Give folks a moment to respond. All right, so let's look at our results. Okay, we have a lot coming in for year one, exploration and development. So it's about 67% of the folks on the call. Looks like the second highest is a year two, so kickoff and universal interventions at about 20%. Okay, great. So in a few moments, I will transition to Dr. Paul Barbato from Dumont Public Schools and really allow him to share his experience with developing and expanding the MTSS framework in Dumont. But in summary, I just wanted to, quickly provide a quick summary of what we covered so far today. So one thing we learned is that tier one is really essential to building a strong MTSS framework. The development of your comprehensive school mental health framework is a multi-year, multi-phase process. And comprehensive school mental health teams really play an integral role in the development and execution of your MTSS framework. And a key component of comprehensive school mental health is a collaboration with community providers and stakeholders, including students and families. All right, Paul, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you again for our colleagues at MHTTC for putting this together, this webinar series for our state. I think we'll all benefit from just having discussions about what we're doing in our respective districts and working together to make things better for our students and families. So I wanted to focus on how do you build capacity for a tiered system of support, specifically under the umbrella of mental health. Right, so as I was reflecting on preparing some slides, I thought about the different components that we have in place in our district. And they really rely on these 6 ideas that I'm going to expand upon, which involve our existing affiliation agreements with master's level programs and doctoral level programs, intervention and referral services, our existing committee, and using that as a foundation for additional training and additional support and additional ideas, mental health agency affiliation, which I'll go into details with, and that expansion of support for families outside of school and within school hours for our students, our affiliation and collaboration with our county's care management organization, and just a couple of examples of our tier 1 programs for students and parents, and an example or 2 examples of tier 2 programs for students. Next slide, please. So we do have existing graduate program affiliations that are free. They're non-paid internships. And this is a great way for existing school counselors, school psychologists, learning consultants, school social workers to work with graduate students in training and provide access to what the field of special education looks like on a daily basis. But it also serves a dual role in providing coursework requirements and practical experiences within the classroom and within the structures of the school day. So we do have affiliation agreements with FDU, with Montclair, with NJCU, with Kane University, Ramapo, Rutgers, and Fordham along the different disciplines. And we have been very fortunate to align a couple of courses with having graduate students spend their practical experiences within our schools, specifically working within the existing committee of INRS, the Intervention and Referral Services Committee, where it's a part of their coursework to take data, develop behavior plans, working with consultation with teachers, working on academic data collection with teachers through observations, review of data, and making intervention plans with teachers who request that consultation, right? So there is an existing foundation of every fall, every spring semester, we have about 12 to 15 students working within our buildings on a rotation that work with our building principals, work with the teachers that are on this committee, which range from a general ed teacher to a special ed teacher to a child study team member to the school nurse to an electives teacher to a school counselor. Very, very effective in developing just the groundwork for a tiered system of support with looking at how we're looking at data. Who are our, quote, interventionists or available interventionists? Next slide, please. So our first step about 13 years ago was really taking a closer look at how we were providing consultation to teachers who had difficulties in the classroom, understanding difficulties that students were having, whether academically, behaviorally, social, emotionally. And we had FDU, the school psychology program, come in to observe our meetings and make recommendations. And they observed multiple meetings and made recommendations that improved our process. And one of the outcomes of that consultation was really to develop what we call a disposition sheet. So every meeting has a formal procedure where if it's a 30-minute meeting, if it's a 45-minute meeting, there's a set structure. And we follow the state model with INRS meeting timeframes. This way, as my colleague Christy said before, we're not memorializing the problem, we're really strategizing for solutions and working with the participants at that meeting to really develop an understanding of what the problem is, what data we can review to make informed decisions in our consultative relationship with the teacher. So with that, we were able to adopt very consistent procedures across our district and really streamline the training that building administrators received, the paperwork that we utilize on a daily basis with this process to make sure that it was seamless and very consistent. And we formalized the use of additional educational specialists, whether they involve the school social worker, whether they involve the school psychologist, or the speech and language specialist, or a physical therapist, or occupational therapist, or behaviorist. And we formalized the process to involve a set procedure that the building administrator would request the use of that educational specialist within this process. And that really allowed us to see systemically where the concerns were, whether they were academic by grade level, whether they were behavioral in terms of perhaps some infraction that was a repeat infraction based on code of conduct, and maybe there was a need for more positive behavior support training for that particular teacher or grade level, or even building. So we were able to use INRS as a foundation of identifying what pockets of professional development we needed on a continual basis, but also in a way to develop a firm understanding of what wasn't working, and what we needed to really improve upon. We also employed the use of a mental health clinician to help with some heavy duty requests for counseling through parental consent, or link the parent to existing outside agencies like the Family Support Organization of our county, or certainly our care management organization, Bergen's Promise within Bergen County, or Division of Family Guidance. So making sure that parents had a clear pipeline and referral to agencies that can help outside the school day. Next slide, please. So examples of tier one, right? That's where you're here. You're hearing about what is the foundation, how can a school district start with preparing, and what are some examples that are very quick, very easy to put together, and very collaborative in nature. This way, it's not a one and done, but something you can replicate and generalize to grade levels and different populations. One of which was a very strong collaboration with our local police department and within our district, working with fellow administrators, specifically at the high school and middle school, along with our child study team members and the interns I mentioned before, our school psychology and school social worker interns. So we developed a building-wide presentation that was presented by our anti-bullying coordinator, our school psychologist, our local chief of police, our child study team members, as well as other administrators, on what cyberbullying looks like and what are the ramifications of cyberbullying outside of school. So we reinforced expectations while having middle school assemblies, high school assemblies, and follow-up discussions within health classes on the importance of respectful language, knowing what to do when you don't know what to do, which is an important perspective taking ability to have as a middle schooler or high schooler. And we treated that as a tier one intervention. Next slide. Another tier one intervention, which we've had in place, I'd say for about 10 years ago, probably 10 years, came about through one of our parents on our special ed parent advisory committee. And we developed a collaborative effort with administrators, with general ed teachers, special ed teachers, board of ed members, child study team members, school counselors, and myself. And we put together a committee that created an annual mental health wellness fair. And what was interesting about this is that we had different student groups in our high school involved in preparing activities. And we rotated the physical education and health class per se as a location where students can attend and participate in and learn from these activities under the umbrella of mental health awareness. We were able to have outside organizations through our Bergen County Children's Interagency Coordinating Council participate and share resources for students on what to do when you're stressed out, or what are some after-school program ideas, or educating students on substance prevention, or what do you do when you're not feeling yourself and you're feeling depressed or sad or anxious. So we were able to develop activities with different teachers volunteering to engage with students in planned activities. Our educational specialists, whether they were the school counselor, the school psychologist, school social worker, also provided mindfulness activities, developing growth mindset activities. We also had some specialist teachers bring in some of their outside involvements. We had a drum circle, and we had just different ideas that students can engage in under the umbrella of promoting mental health. And we also had our stigma-free committee in town involved, promoting mental health awareness while giving concrete ideas of what students can do. And this has been a very successful program that you can replicate in your buildings, in your districts. Next slide, please. So the whole day was spent with activities focusing on strategies dealing with depression, looking at suicidal ideation, what to look for in signs from your peers, drug and alcohol awareness, mental health hotlines in Bergen County, careers in mental health. Our psychology teacher was very helpful in coordinating ideas for students to figure out what they can do post-secondary, in the field of psychology, in the field of social work. Acupressure and aromatherapy, certainly just different alternatives to looking at mental health awareness, guided meditation, mindfulness, and healthy choices. We were the recipient of the New Jersey School Boards Association Innovations Award, which we're really honored at that year. It's a lot of work that my colleagues and the students put into this event, which is still alive and well. Next slide, please. Another tier 1 dealt with presentations within health classes from our child study team interns, focusing on resiliency factors and risk factors with depression and anxiety. And we generalized this same information to parents via a series of workshops that we made available to them at nighttime. So whatever students received during the school day, we were clear to make sure that parents received the same information. Next slide. Tier 1, and looking at our HIB data, and this could also be another source of information as you develop a semblance of how do you build a tier 1 universal intervention. What data do you use? You can certainly use your existing HIB data, right? You can work with your building principal, work with your superintendent, certainly work with the educational specialists in your building, in your district, on analyzing what were the sources of investigations. When we did this in our district, we found that one year, it was helpful if we helped middle school students develop a semblance of perspective taking, and in doing so, being able to respect differences. So we had our child study team members and our CST interns work together and provide presentations to our middle school during health. And that was a way where we were able to reach every middle school student. Next slide. After school programming, this is a program that we're very proud of. We've had this in place, I'd say, for about 12 years or so. And we treat this as a tier 2 intervention. And one of our students came up with our name, Learning Connection. And it really is designed to work with 2 grades at a time during a school year, from late January to early to mid-April, right before the standardized testing begins. And it really is an intervention that is after school twice a week. And the Board of Ed is graciously supportive and provides the payment to hire a teacher, an assistant, and we're able to provide transportation for students. I want to get into more details with the next slide. So who are the participants? So we target 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and every year we just focus on 2 grades. So whether it's 3rd and 4th grade, and then the 3rd graders the following year are 4th graders, so we have new 5th graders. And the students are screened by their teachers. We have a survey, or I should say almost like a questionnaire that teachers complete, and they work with the existing interventionists in the building, and they are able to identify students in need of this additional support. And we provide mentoring from our high school students, and we have an application process for that. And we administer some measures just to make sure that we're looking at the data to drive any tweaks that we may have the following school year. So one measure that we do use is Carol Dweck's mindset measure. And we have used another scale with the DIBELS, the oral reading fluency scale, just as a pre and post measure. We take attendance, and we were able to provide some feedback the following year based on the post-test data. Next slide, please. Our mentors are recruited by our supervisor of guidance. She and I, along with our director of curriculum, will go around and speak with the student populations at the high school. Our school counselors are very actively involved in securing mentors, and we have an application process. And we have an option to graduation credit potential in our district, where students who are in the high school can use their time within this after-school program as an option too, right? And that's something that is a benefit to them, as well as the experience to working with students in case they have a trajectory of becoming teachers themselves or wanting to work with kids. We do provide behavioral support we do subscribe to positive behavior support. Our school psychologists and school psychologist interns provide training to our mentors well before the program begins on what to work with a third grader or fourth grader in a positive manner in terms of reframing or redirecting. And we do allow for flexibility because a lot of our student mentors are involved actively within the school, whether it's the school play or sport or another involvement with the group. Next slide. So we do provide the program in our high school, even though it is designed for third and fourth graders or fifth graders. And the research is clear, for a student not to drop out, the research really points to starting early and developing those relationships early on. And when polled, students who have left high school, whether they dropped out, they've reported they didn't get along with teachers. The relationships they had really weren't strong. So knowing that, we really have an emphasis on having third and fourth graders project themselves into the high school so that whatever they're going through in third grade is temporary, and that the support of their student mentor in the high school setting, in the media center, they get to really take perspective of what to look forward to. And the affiliation that I started talking about with our higher ed institution, namely FDU, in this regard has been extremely beneficial because we do take a field trip to the university. So the kids are going to college and the director of curriculum and I will ride the bus with the kids and we'll take the field trip. And the kids, have a very great experience knowing what to expect when we have a program set up for them when they get to the college. We have some college students from the psych department who are either living on campus or commuting, and they talk about what to expect in college. So we really set up this tiered approach of mentoring where we do have graduate students working with the high school students to kind of help them as they're working to navigate their relationships of mentoring with the third and fourth graders. But we also have this dynamic where the third graders are benefiting from access to the university students, right? So it really is a tiered approach of mentoring. And the focal point in the next slide we'll get to is that from 3:30 to 4, there's homework support, right? Kids always complain too much homework. Parents like this homework is different than what we had when we grew up. So we have a homework component where the mentor is working directly with the third or fourth grader, and they're specifically working with homework. And we provide a healthy snack, which is not on this slide, but we provide a healthy snack. And from 4 to 4:30, the teacher that we hired, usually a special ed teacher or someone who's duly certified, she or he will provide a lesson in language arts. And from 4:30 to 5, we do access some online educational applications, and we do infuse teacher-directed mindset activities. And we purchase a lot of materials, and our school psychologist works very closely with the teacher to provide ideas and consultation on infusing mindset measure activities based on Carol Dweck's work. Next slide. And there's a focus on mindset because there is a lot of research, and there's one citation here that looks at decoding and reading comprehension skills in fourth graders and how mindset can predict that. So we have taken data and mindset measures have improved, even though the program itself is for 6 to 7 weeks, twice a week. We have seen mindset measures based on a mindset measure improve, right? So we're very proud of that. Next slide. And I can share any of these specific measures with you. Just email Christy or certainly Kati, and we'll get back to you on that detail. We have implemented a restorative practice model when it comes to looking at how we provide consequences to disciplinary infractions. And this we made a goal, a district-wide goal a few years ago. And our middle school and high school kind of took the lead. And our middle school principal had really started this, and we just formalized it. And Dr. Bennett really had been doing something very similar to this and with a lot of success. So we just generalized it. So we have what's called a structured day, where if it involves an infraction based on code of conduct that can be planned in advance where we have the student attend a structured day of school, and we provide access to other educational specialists like our psychologist, our social worker, our school counselor, our interns. And we use this social skills curriculum out of San Francisco that we received from our colleagues at FDU. And I can share that name with you. And that's what the reference is here, where it says aligned with SEL and social competency. That's the material that I'm referencing. And we will work around with the student what the infraction was. And we'll really break down in a counseling kind of environment or a structured school day, how to really improve. This way, it's not an avoidance or kind of you're out of school suspended. It's really looking at that structured day with the goal of really gaining perspective and gaining that sense of resiliency of not to kind of get to that point again with other options to consider. And we do follow up with the parent with additional linkages, community, whether it is involving some counseling or some other activities that the parent can consider. We do have a very strong relationship with our county's care management organization, and they have their own structure when they're working with families. And their structure is similar to what we know in special ed as the IEP procedure, but their procedure involves what's called a child family team meeting. And they discuss what are supports that are in place for this family. But they also involve the school personnel. And that's where we come in. So our collaboration meetings are quarterly, and we have about, I'd say 30 families in our town that have services in or with the county care management organization. So we discuss what are the services in place. Oh, okay, this family has this in place in the school district. Where can we meet in the middle? Can we supplement? Are there additional referrals, or are there additional agencies, or are there additional supports that the school district can provide? So these quarterly collaboration meetings have been vital in terms of identifying families in need. And we have all child study team members present, all school counselors present, and we have a procedure. So when they have a child family team meeting, their procedure is to inform the building administrator or involve me, and we will make sure that a member of the school community, whether it's the educational specialist or school counselor, present at their upcoming child family team meeting, because that's a necessary component for that wraparound model of involving the school, involving additional personnel that are working with that family, and maybe directly or indirectly with that child. So this has been sort of like the foundation for additional tier 1 and additional tier 2 supports. And I'll explain that in the next slide. So with that, we were able to pilot a couple of years ago nurtured heart training for all staff. And this was really the outgrowth of our affiliation with our care management organization. And every county has this, right? So if you're not in Bergen County, don't worry. Your county has a care management organization that you can get a hold of, right? That you can invite and say, listen, can we have a discussion? I hear that you're able to work with school districts on programming for parents, programming for students, right? Don't be afraid to do that. And one example would be to perhaps utilize this nurtured heart approach, which looks at how we reinforce expectations, looking at how we are communicating with students. And we provided that training to all district personnel first in all 5 of our buildings, ranging from our instructional assistants to our administrators, to our instructional staff, to our everyone else, right? And we generalized it to our parents in a series of workshops, and it was very successful. Another example has been that we've had targeted parent trainings. That mental health agency affiliation that I started off in the first slide talking about, I didn't get into detail yet, but I'm about to right now. We have a contract with an existing mental health agency, Care Plus, and we have a full-time clinician on staff. And she works with each of our 5 buildings, and she's housed within our high school. And she provides, as part of our contract with the mental health agency, parent trainings based on data, based on administrator input, based on other feedback from community members. So that's been very helpful as a tier 1 intervention. A tier 2, not dealing with mental health, but looking at that family dynamic of what may involve a little bit of struggle, right, with the parent of a preschooler or a kindergarten student. we had something in place where it was learning about shared reading strategies, working with parents, develop ideas as they work with their child who is developing reading skills, how to reinforce what to do, right? So we had some parent workshops that dealt with FDU providing a trainer and working with our parents and over a series of strategies. And pre and post data from that intervention showed a lot of promise with parents feeling more confident, with their stress levels being decreased as a result of taking on additional information on how to work best with their child when developing the skill of reading. Next slide. So present mental health initiatives. We're very fortunate to have had the mental health grant last year, right? Because we're implementing a lot of great ideas this school year. And we're looking forward to implementing additional ideas with the new funding that came out a couple weeks ago. So one current initiative that we're very proud of is using this educational simulation called Cognito with a K. And we provided access last year to all district personnel on how to work with students who are having difficulties, whether with their sexual identity or perhaps within how to address a student who is having an emotional difficulty, whatever that sounds like. And it was very successful. And part of the mental health grant funding, we purchased additional training for our staff, working with pre-K to 12 personnel, but also a student component in middle school and high school on substance use prevention, conflict resolution, enhancing school climate, and what are referred to as friend-to-friend simulations, where students are actively participating and answering, how would you handle this scenario? Very active involvement. And it's an evidence-based program. So we're rolling that out now. We're also in the groundbreaking planning stages and implementation of a transition program for students who have received psychiatric intervention, who are returning to the high school or returning to middle school. And we're returning with targeted support. So our school psychologist has taken the lead at the high school, working with our mental health clinician on developing a comprehensive program, right, that really helps students transition. This way, when they do come back to the building, they're able to feel, and parents are assured that the support for mental health is there. We've implemented music therapy for our students within our special classes, contracted with a music therapist. It's been very helpful. The kids love it and the teachers love it, which is great. We're implementing art therapy for middle school, looking more about class building and looking at middle school students to connect with each other and looking at whole class or whole grade level activities. We've increased our flexible seating options in each of our buildings and additional strategies and trainings for our educational specialists in the areas of working with students with anxiety, specifically the use of tapping or motivational interviewing techniques, and certainly any other strategies that would help students who are depressed or feeling anxiety, certainly with school refusal as well. So those are our present mental health initiatives that fall under Tier 1, Tier 2, if you will. Next slide. And this is it. This is where you will get turned over to Christy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barbato. Wow, I mean, it's so wonderful to hear about all of the amazing supports that you have in place at Dumont. I was particularly impressed with just the collaboration with universities and bringing in additional staff to help support with students' mental health. We do have some questions, I think, that my team is saying we're receiving in the Q&A, but before we do that, just for the sake of time, I think it may be helpful, Kati, if you just explain to folks the evaluation process, and then we can go ahead and transition to question and answer.
Hi, everyone. So as Christy said, we would like to share with you a Gipper link in the chat box. Let me do that now. It is a link to our evaluation. And just as a reminder, we are funded through SAMHSA to provide this training, and as we are required to submit data related to the quality of this event. So we ask that you please complete this very short survey, and then it will also redirect you to a longer survey. It's a voluntary survey. It's much longer and it's more open-ended. So if you had specific recommendations, you can enter it into a form so that way we are well informed of what your needs are. Next slide, please. Next one.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. Well, there it is. Also, you can also scan the QR code that you see on your screen if it's easier for you to access our survey. Next slide. In addition to that, we do have a needs assessment that we are conducting to guide our educational training and technical assistance efforts. All responses are anonymous, as a reminder. So you can also access our needs assessment by scanning the QR code that you see on the screen, and I will also share the link in the chat box.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. And we just wanted to give folks an opportunity to pull those surveys up and complete them, while we're going through the Q&A portion of our presentation. So I think we can go ahead and open it up for question and answer. So if the rest of the team, if there were questions that came in, let's go ahead and get started.
Hi, so I wanted to start with a question that Dr. Barbado actually started to answer in the chat around how to identify and develop teams to support the MTSS framework and a comprehensive system.
Sure, that's a great question. And I think it's a very common one because it sounds very daunting, right? I would start with the INRS committee. I would really work with the existing structure that's in place, have a meeting, and take this idea. Every year, the building administrator has to provide recommendations to how effective that process has been. And that's part of QSAC. That's part of a monitoring procedure that districts have to provide feedback on. That could be a great way to kind of say reflectively, what have we done this year in terms of the request for consultation, how the data was collected, what interventions we had in place, how can we make that better? And start from there. That could be a good ground point for you.
Thank you, Dr. Barbado. And another question is around funding and some of the community connections that were made and sustaining the programs that are in place. I mean, there's so much that can be offered, and how do you sustain that?
You have to really understand the data, right? So the mental health agency that we brought in, it was a recommendation that we had that was board considered and approved after showing a need, right? So if you look at the cost benefit of providing additional clinical support to students in district versus out of district tuition, right? Any location can be therapeutic, right? So in looking at how do you make a classroom, a building, a district more therapeutic, you first have to identify what supports you have in place. And sometimes that additional linkage that a mental health agency can provide could be your answer. A lot of times you could have an extended school day, maybe until 4 o'clock, where it allows the clinician to work with the student. So what we did in our example, I looked at the number of students that were currently receiving that intensity of therapeutic support elsewhere, and try to identify, if we were to bring those supports in district, how that would help students remain in district. And that was really the road to kind of drive on to get to that destination.
Thank you for that answer, and really points to the importance, as you were saying, of data and how collecting that data to support the structure.
And Dr. Barbado, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of your partnerships don't cost anything, correct? So even the partnerships with the universities and kind of getting that additional support, could you just talk about that a little bit more too?
You revealed our secret. None of our initiatives cost anything except for that mental health agency affiliation. Everything else, from the affiliation to higher ed, to our affiliations with our care management organization, to the trainings that were provided to our parents and students directly, to our collaboration with the local police department, and certainly the trainings that we received from our State Department of Ed have all been free. We're very fortunate to have those existing collaborative relationships.
Absolutely. So it sounds like, building those relationships are really key too, and networking within your local community. Do we have any more questions?
So there are no other questions at this time. If anyone else wants to put anything else in the Q&A box, please feel free.
That's great. Thank you so much. I know there may have been one question, and Alicia, forgive me because you may have answered this already in the chat, but there was a question, the low-hanging fruit that I mentioned in terms of when you're implementing and, you may be dealing with some significant challenges. The resources that I mentioned were SEL kernels. And so I don't know if that information was provided in the chat. There should be a website. And the other one was the good behavior game, which is a very cost-effective, low intensity resource. It's evidence-based. And it's even been implemented not just in classrooms, how it was intended initially, but even in cafeterias, which is pretty amazing, with really, really good outcomes. So I believe that information was provided in the chat. The other thing I should mention too is all of the resources that Dr. Barbado mentioned, we will be sure to get those from him. And Kati will send out an email to all of the participants on the call today. That email will include a link to the PowerPoint slide, and it will also include all of the resources that we shared during today's webinar. So if there are no more questions in the chat, I will turn it back over to you, Kati, just in terms of the evaluation piece, just to make sure that folks have everything they need. I don't know if we need to drop that in the chat one more time.
Yes, I'll go ahead and drop the link again in the chat. Like I said, this is a very short survey. It's an evaluation that all of the MHTTCs and TTCs have signed, but we also have a survey that's a little bit longer in length, as well as the needs assessment. And I shared that link in the chat box as well. Also, as a reminder, for a full listing of all of the upcoming webinars, monthly webinars that we will host, please visit the website, and I will share that link in the chat box as well. And that will have all of the registration links for the technical assistance calls. Christy, do you want to go over that? The technical assistance calls.
Absolutely. So the technical assistance calls right now are just designed to provide additional support. We know that obviously we can't answer all of your questions during the webinar series. So if there are more specific concerns, or you need to kind of think and problem solve, we are more than happy to do that with your school-based team. All you have to do is just go to our website. There are a few time slots that are available per month, and we will certainly make ourselves available and spend about an hour with you or your team, and to kind of help you, with the implementation process. So it looks like we are right at 4:15. Again, I just wanted to take the opportunity to really thank Dr. Barbado for, sharing all the wonderful work that he and his team is doing over in Dumont. Thank all of you for joining us, and we certainly hope that you will continue to join us as we move throughout the series. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.